Hey, what's up, guys? Chad here. I think one of the best ways to get comfortable with the idea of actually moving to the Philippines is to hear other people's stories and experiences. And in this video, I sat down with a gentleman named Paul McGill, who I think a lot of you guys probably know of already through his YouTube channel. And we talked about a bunch of stuff. He told a story about his motivation for coming here to the Philippines, pros and cons now that he's here in the Philippines, pitfalls to be aware of when it comes to dating, and a bunch of other stuff. Let's get to it. You've been here for how long now?
Going on 7 years.
So let's back up then. Before 7 years ago, what was it that sort of inspired you to come here, and how did it all come about?
Good question. I had burnt out in America.
Okay.
I was done. I was toast. And back in 2005, I took a trip to Thailand and saw how the other half lives. And never been to Asia before. And a friend invited me over. And when I got there, I just fell in love with Asia. End of story. I saw how people lived. I saw how their attitudes were. I saw the beauty of the country. And when I got home back in 2005, the die was set. I was coming to Asia. And when I retired, I was not going to get the RV and throw the old lady in there and go up to Yosemite.
You saw a whole new light of what opportunities are out there.
Yeah.
A little better than the RV dream, eh?
Gotcha. So I said, when the time comes, that's where I want to go. And I guess that, work had always been very, very stressful. My marriage had always been very dysfunctional. I was wound up. I was burnt out. I was devastated in the recession. Everything that I had worked for the majority of my life just got swept out to sea. And at the age of 50-something, I was starting all over again. So that was not fun.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people can relate to that. The burnout, for sure. That whole American dream, work,
Yep.
to a point where you're miserable
Yep.
and you're questioning what it's all about.
Yep.
A marriage that, didn't work out and became toxic or whatever. I think a lot of guys can relate to that too.
Toxic, yeah.
So cost of living here, I would imagine, played a big part in that when you're in your 50s and you're like, how am I going to...
It was the primary driver. Back 5 years, 6 years before I hit retirement age, excuse me, I started to Google cheapest places to retire. Panama came up, Mexico came up, Thailand came up, but head and shoulders above the rest back then, back in 2012 when I started looking, Philippines was at the top of the list. And believe it or not, Sleepy Little Dumaguete always came in at number one. That's since changed. Those numbers have changed since then. But back in 2012, 13, it was the Philippines. So I did what I think a lot of guys do. I started watching YouTube videos of the Philippines, and I started watching Enrique and all these guys and running around and how much. And I was always excited about the next budget video. When are they going to do a budget video? And back then, $1,000 a month was the magic number. That's what they were all living on.
Fully living on $1,000 US.
Rent, food, entertainment. And I just knew that I did not want to work anymore. So on my 62nd birthday, I was second in line at Social Security to sign up.
You're like, you had a plan.
Yeah, I had a plan. So I got in line. I got my Social Security dialed in. I worked for 2 more months because you're allowed to earn X amount of dollars while you're collecting. And I was so burnt and so fried and so stressed out that I didn't even, I was so insecure that I waited until 2 Social Security checks actually hit my bank to make sure that it was going to work each time. The only concern I had was being somewhere and being broke or not having access to cash.
Right.
That was my fear.
For sure.
I knew that if I had $1,000 back then, that I would always have a roof over my head, I would always have food in my stomach, and I wouldn't have to stress. And when I was living in America, I had done fairly well financially, and I had, after the divorce, I kept the house, and I lived in this big house, and I looked around, and all I had was stuff, and the stuff wasn't giving me a hug at night or talking
Yeah.
to me. It wasn't keeping me.
It's
company.
weighing you down more than anything.
And if I had to insure it, I had to maintain it, I had to fix it, I had to whatever. And so I just sort of unconsciously became a minimalist and started to unload it. And when I came over to the Philippines, the day I got on the airplane, I had one piece of luggage and a backpack.
That was it. That's all you brought to the Philippines.
I just sold, gave away, whatever.
Did you miss any of that stuff?
Not a bit.
Not a bit.
Not a bit.
Let me back up a little bit. So
Go
you came to Thailand, you fell in love with Asia, and you sort of had this dream start, and you started watching YouTube videos. Mm-hmm. Did you visit Dumaguete in the Philippines first?
No.
You just moved here.
I just came here on a wing and a prayer.
Wow. That's incredible. Do you recommend that now that you've done it? I guess it depends, right, on the person.
Well, yeah, it does. Here's the dealio, is I'd taken the advice that I'd heard that you should have a safety net. And I asked myself a simple question. I said, Paul, if you fly over there and you hate it, you've got money in the bank, well, the worst case scenario is you fly back home to America.
You can always go back.
Rent another apartment, go get another knucklehead job. And,
right. Might as well give it a go.
What the hell? You know, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
I love that. So you came with a little bit of savings and you came with your Social Security.
I did.
And you felt pretty good with that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I live better now on the least amount of money that I've ever earned in my life than I did when I made the most money in my life.
You shifted your mindset too when you came here. You became more of a minimalist.
If you unload stuff, you allow other things to come into your life. So the stuff goes away and you're no longer focused on it.
Right.
But what you're focused on is yourself and your own well-being, your peace
quality
of mind,
time and having experiences. Yeah. With people you care about and everything like that.
Absolutely.
Let's transition to that, people you care about. So a big motivator for people to come here is cost of living, what we're talking about. But number two, and in some cases number one, there's a lot of guys that want to come here to meet someone and hopefully find a good, partner to be with or travel with or marry, whatever. Can you share your experience with that and anything that can help anyone that's interested in doing that?
Absolutely, positively. One of the last things that I wanted to do was get involved with anybody.
Okay. That was not your motivation at all.
No,
okay.
No, I knew it was there.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously by watching all these videos, they were always showing their pretty girlfriends.
Right, yeah.
All that kind of stuff. And I appreciate a beautiful woman like any other red-blooded man. But when I came over here, it was like, boy, I don't know. I had such a horrible time. And I'm not ex-wife bashing, okay? I have to own it. I'm the one that married her. I'm the one that picked her out of the lineup and said, will you be my wife? So it's on me. But the fact that it was so much pain, so much agony, so much drama, and there's stuff that I could go on for hours about the dynamics of our relationship and the kids and everything else would curl your toes. And I won't do it. Just take my word for it. It was ugly. And when I was alone for 8 or 9 years after the divorce before I came over here, and I really reveled in just being alone. I like myself. I can entertain myself. I can make myself laugh. I just think of something and just go, that's pretty funny. It didn't bother me. Just being able to go where I want, do what I want, eat what I want.
There's something to be said about that.
Sleep in, not sleep in. Go gamble or go to church or whatever I want to do, I did. And I didn't have to check in, I didn't have to find out if we needed a quart of milk on the way home, that kind of stuff. And so when I got over here, I still had that mindset. I do not want to really get involved with anybody. That changed a lot quicker than I thought it would. The women are so beautiful. The women are so friendly. The women are so much different than what I was accustomed to. That, again, being a red-blooded male, when you see a beautiful woman and she lets you know she's attracted to you, it's nature take its course,
It's kind of hard to resist that.
Pretty difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
So you opened up your mind to it and then you started dating a little bit and meeting people.
I did. The first woman that I was involved with was a setup from my neighbor, and I thank God every day that I met her, because she was not the type of woman that you want to be with. She was beautiful, she was sexy, she was attentive, she was this, she was that, but she had all these red flags about her that fortunately I was able to curtail after about 3 or 4 months. She was the proverbial black hole when it came to money. And so once that ended, we parted ways. I told myself, well, okay, Paul, you made that mistake. Shame on you if you let it happen again. Shame on her, but shame on me if I let it happen again.
Yeah.
And I never let that happen again.
It was a learning lesson.
It was.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because everyone's heard about that, the risks of being scammed, or girls that just want your money and things like that. Sometimes I think it's very obvious at the beginning, and other times it can take a few months to start to maybe catch on to the intention and motivation.
There's a lot of women, I'm not bashing Filipinos here, but it's all over the world, but there's a lot of women that can put on a good front.
Yeah.
But it only lasts for so long.
That's right.
Until you find out what they're really made out of. And shame on you if once you find that out and you continue to enable them. And when guys say they got scammed, I kind of take exception to that. I think, did you get scammed? Or did you just...
That's true. That term is thrown out pretty loosely.
It sure
if you're
is.
handing out money,
sure is.
Maybe some wisdom is required.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Men are, especially men of my age and men that have been alone for a long time.
Right.
You have to have some self-awareness that you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
You're lonely.
That's right. And a
you're,
beautiful younger woman is giving you all this attention that you're not maybe used to.
And you become the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
You're easy to grab. And then once you get into it, sometimes you let that cycle begin. And the only advice, which I don't like to give, but the advice I gave myself was, Paul, this time you're going to set boundaries. And those boundaries, the minute they get crossed, we're moving on.
So do you communicate your boundaries and intentions early on? So
Absolutely.
You kind of know, like right away.
I dated a number of women for 2 years before I met my wife. And every single solitary time that I met them, they asked me, they would say, oh, are you single? Are you this? Are you that? All these qualifying questions that you get. And because they're trying to feel you out, see what you got.
Exactly.
What's in it for them.
Sure.
But they would say, are you looking for a girlfriend? I say, nope.
Interesting.
Yeah. And an interesting dynamic. It made them more competitive. And I was honest with every single one of them. And I would go out with Betty on Tuesday and Mary on Friday, and I wasn't afraid to post a picture on Facebook.
You were just so upfront and honest about
Absolutely.
it. So they knew what
was
potentially going to happen.
Absolutely. The minute you lie, you're creating this quagmire of problems.
So true.
And you're being such a, pardon my French, but you're being such a dick, to the woman. And you're just misrepresenting yourself. You're making other foreigners look bad.
Yeah.
So if you can be candid up front
For sure.
and honest with them, all those women that I dated, and I didn't date them long, but, a few weeks, a month, a day, whatever.
Yeah.
We're all still friends.
How did you meet your current wife, if you don't mind sharing that?
Oh, no.
Because it went from not wanting anything serious, and you were even tired of dating and just going to the bar. Some time passed, and then how did you guys meet? And what made it sort of change your thinking?
Well, I went out to dinner with another couple, and I was the third wheel. It was him, his girl, and then me with no girlfriend. And his girlfriend asked me the usual stuff. Are you single? Why don't you have a girlfriend? That's just like the top 5 questions you get within 5 minutes here when you meet somebody. And I just told her, I said, well, I haven't met anybody that I found to be special.
Right.
I just haven't met that one person
Sure.
that really trips my trigger. Because what I used to do back in the day when I was dating someone, I would look at them and I would say, do I see myself with this person in 5 years? And the answer was always no. And so she said, so going back to our dinner date, she said, well, I have a friend that I think you might like. I said, okay, cool. And here's my Facebook. And so it was May, my wife. and she lived an hour away in Chaton. And so she took a bus and met me, and we went to lunch, and we kind of hit it off. She came back to my place. We hung out for a while, and then it was time for her to go home. And when we walked out, she was taking a trike from my place because there was something wrong with my bike. I can't remember what it was, but it wouldn't start. I think the battery was dead. So I had to call her a trike to take her down to her sister's house. And I tried to give her some money, and she said, I got money. I don't need your money. And something clicked in my head.
Yeah, like, wait a minute.
I said, well, wait a minute. It's the first time I've ever heard this.
Yeah.
You know? So that stuck with me.
Yeah.
And then over time, we took our time. She was working as a caterer. I was still out, fooling around doing my thing. And we didn't see each other for a week or two because she was working. And then she connected with me again. We hung out again and again and again. I'll tell you a real quick story. She had shown me, this was after about a month of hanging out, she showed me this little passbook savings account that she had, where after having worked for 15 years in Manila as a housekeeper from the age of 15 to her 30s, supporting her family.
Wow.
Yeah, pulled out of school, sent to work because her family was dirt poor. And she was the one that had to go earn. She showed me that she had saved 30,000 pesos.
Wow.
Over 15 years.
That is eye-opening, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that she
But
saved
she's not,
it
yeah.
impressed me. Because most Filipinas, and again, no disrespect to the culture, money comes in and the next day it's gone.
Yeah,
They're broke again tomorrow. She had the wherewithal and the discipline to save.
Yeah.
And I mean save, like I said, 58 pesos. If she had that left over, she put it in her little credit union or whatever.
She showed you a level of responsibility, honesty, integrity, like these qualities that I think a lot of guys are looking for. And I think that is important to talk about. Like, there are really good, honest Filipinas out there that don't have any money but aren't going to ask for it.
It gets a little better.
Okay.
A month later, I was jacking around with her because we were starting to see each other more and more frequently. And I went up to her and I said, I was just kidding, I was being sarcastic. I said, you know what, baby, I don't have the rent this month. I said, could I borrow that 30,000 you got?
No way.
Yeah, and she didn't know I was kidding. All right, and she looked at me real seriously and she goes, well, I don't have it anymore. I said, what do you mean you don't have it anymore? She said, well, I gave it to my sister. And I said, well, you gave your life savings to your sister so she could bury her husband? She said, yeah. I said, what don't you ask me about? Tell me about it.
Yeah.
And she looked at me in the blues and she said, Paul, it's not your problem.
Wow.
It's not your family. You got your own life to live. It's my family, not yours. I looked at her, I said, could I see myself with her in 5 years? Yes.
Yep, absolutely. Well, this is such an important point. And I think that it's worth hanging on for something like that, right?
Yeah.
And waiting for someone that demonstrates that honesty.
I agree, man. And I preach whenever I speak to guys, and I see them not do it, but I tell them, slow down. Just slow down, man. Because when you get here, it's so exciting and it's so eye-opening. And like I said, the women are so pretty and stuff is cheap, and so you think you're going to go spend and do and go and see, and that's all well and good. But when it comes to the females, I really think just slow down.
Such a good recommendation.
Take your time, man. Get to know them.
Yeah.
People don't, including us, we don't really show our true colors until about 6 months in.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, we're all on our best behavior. We're always wearing our nicest shirt, or making sure our hair is just right when we meet them. That kind of
Totally.
stuff,
Yeah.
And so are they. And so I just think, slow down, man. Take your time, get to know them, and because they'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah, that's such a good recommendation. I see this time and time again with guys that, it happens so fast. They meet online, they come here, they spend a month, they propose, they go back home, and the next time they come here, they're getting married.
Yeah.
And then they're like living in the US, trying to hurry up and retire to come back. And what a stressful thing to put on yourself. And when you hear these horror stories about people that are, taking advantage of foreigners, well, this is where we come back to the guy has to play a part in that
You allowed
decision
yourself
making.
to be taken advantage of. You set that up. You didn't set up any boundaries. You didn't set for yourself.
Yeah.
You didn't set up any rules, any regulations. You didn't have a game plan. You met the first pretty face that told you you're handsome.
Yeah.
And you like what you heard, and so you don't want to let that go because you haven't heard it in so long, and so you do everything you can to keep it. And then you find out that she's really not what she presented herself to be.
And you're already deep into it, financially, emotionally, and everything like that. We could go into so many different stories. You've been here for 7 years. You've had a lot of different experiences. But at the end of the day, guys, I think Paul shares a pretty good story about what life can be like here. You don't want to rush into it. You want to, take your time. But know that there's potentially an amazing setup here where you can live a lifestyle that you really just can't back home because of cost of living. And
there's potential disasters here too.
I was just going to say that. Don't come here thinking that everything is perfect. That's for sure.
Amen.
So Paul, if you know Paul, he has his own YouTube channel. He's been doing it for a few years now with great success, incredible videos and interviews and helping people make these decisions. And you talk about that in your videos. You talk about the things that you're mentioning, not to rush into it and, take your time and wait for the one that you can really see yourself within 5 years. So,
amen.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for your time, Paul, and sharing your story for everyone.
It's my pleasure.
If you don't know Paul's channel, it's Paul in the Philippines, Old Dog, New Tricks. Check it out. Great YouTube channel with good information. Thanks again. And we'll see you in the next video.
See you guys.
See ya.